Good evening, I'm Chris Stone, and welcome to tonight's Facebook Live update. And we're also live on LinkedIn and YouTube. A little bit different setup tonight than normal, but I am Chuck's oldest son. Joining me tonight is Adam, my brother, and our very special guest, Rob Neff, a close family friend. Rob, I put down advocate for the Bucyrus community. So many different hats that you wore throughout your time living here. So I appreciate you taking some time and being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Want to just take a few minutes before we get into this and thank our donors. Right now as we sit, we are at $9,000 in the fund. And so without our donors, this would not be possible. Also want to mention that the donation information is going to be posted in the comments at the end of the live. So if you're so compelled, we encourage you to look at how you can give either in a check form or in online form. So before we get started tonight and turn things over to Rob, wanted to share the background on Stoney's Kindness Fund. Chuck Stone, or Stoney as many knew him, was a helper. Whether it was coaching football and track at Bucyrus High School or leading a team of volunteers and building the press box at the Bucyrus High School football stadium, you could always find him helping. Upon his untimely passing, many talked about how kind Stoney was to those he met. His students, current and former, teaching colleagues, teammates, and community members who knew him well all agreed that Chuck's kindness was something that defined him. Stoney's Kindness Fund was started as a means to help children in Bucyrus City Schools who may be facing similar challenges to those that Chuck faced growing up. The goal of this fund is to provide financial support directly to these children through the Community Foundation for Crawford County and the Bucyrus City Schools. Funds, which will be dispersed to the district annually prior to the start of each new school year, will be used to help purchase items like school supplies, clothing, and personal hygiene items. The funds could also be used to help pay class fees, purchase needed sporting equipment, and any other items deemed necessary by Bucyrus City Schools social workers and school counselors to help Bucyrus children succeed. Our goal by the end of August 2022 is to make Stoney's Kindness Fund an endowment fund with the Community Foundation for Crawford County. As of last week's update, the fund currently sits at $9,000, and a total of $16,000 in additional contributions are needed to bring the fund's balance to $25,000 and make it an endowment fund. This will ensure Stoney's Kindness Fund will be able to help Bucyrus children for generations to come. So guys, thank you for indulging me in that. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the floor over to Rob to share some of his favorite memories of Dad.
Thank you, Chris. When you asked me if I would be willing to do this, my immediate reaction was, of course I will. And my second reaction was, what am I going to say? And about as quickly I realized that what I needed to talk with y'all about was storm protection, because I will never think of Chuck without thinking of storm protection. And for various reasons, but my relationship with Chuck over the years is bookends. We were in school together. He was younger than I was by about a year, I think, and so we had that early experience, and then when I moved back to Bucyrus in the late 90s, we kind of resumed at that point in time. And what I will say about Chuck is anyone who knows him owes him debts of gratitude, which he never called due. And I know when I got involved with various public projects here in the community in the late 90s and early 2000s. One of them was the railroad station. And we had organized a volunteer day to build a platform with the roof over it. And we're going to try and put that up in one day, and it was part of, National Make a Difference Day. And it was in October, and weather in Bucyrus is shaky in October, and it was real shaky that day because it rained the whole darn day. And I'll never forget, your dad was there, Chuck was there the whole time, and he was over there with a 10-inch circular saw, just wielding it like a pizza cutter and just slicing off the lumber in the lengths that were needed to build the platform. And we had almost 200 people out there in the rain that day, and Chuck was one of them. And he was the one that was cutting the materials that everybody else was putting into place. And we actually did create that project in one day. So that was, and if you think about it, that project is shelter from the storm in a way, because it was a recreation of a storm shelter that was common in railroad stations. The other reasons that I think of storm protection are a little more personal and closer to home, and one of them involved, I had storm windows that I needed to put on the second story of our house, and I really didn't know how I was going to do that, but I mentioned to Chuck one day in passing that, yeah, I got to find somebody to, put these storm windows up for me. He was like, well, I'll help you. And I said, really? And he said, sure. He said, you tell me when. I said, well, you tell me when if you're going to do it. And he gave me a date and he gave me a time. He comes pulling up in front of the house, and he's got a pickup truck full of scaffolding in the back. And he said, how are we going to do this? He said, we're just build the scaffolding up, put the storm window up, take the scaffolding down, move it over, build it up again, and put those storm windows up, and it looks like 3 moves to me, and we'll have it done.
He made it sound really simple, didn't he?
He did, yes, yes, yes.
He's good at tricking you and bringing you in like that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, he gave me great confidence that we could accomplish this task. So we dove in and four sections of scaffolding. The first time we set it up, it wasn't too bad. And we got up there and it was a single window and we got that done. And then we tore it all down and set it up again. Second time was a little harder. And that was a double window up top. So we got up there and I remember on that one in particular to reach the screws for the top of the storm windows. I wasn't tall enough to do it. Chuck was, and he's standing up there on the very top platform of the scaffolding, no railing around. And if I recall correctly, I was probably on one knee holding on to his belt.
You were. I was across the street at Poplar Street watching this happen, Chris, and it's Ed Gubernath and I looking over, and Ed literally says, "What the hell is going on?" I said, "I have no idea. It's Chuck," and I just turned back to watching TV.
Well, and Chuck said, don't worry, it's fine. I do this all the time. So I worried, but we did it. And then, we tore that all down and we set it up for the last move. We did the third move, and I think I was semi-paralyzed for 2 days afterwards. And although Chuck wouldn't admit it, Sandy said that he was feeling it too. And that made me feel a little better. So that's storm protection number 2. Storm protection number 3 involves the house that Adam and Ed were living in that he was talking about just a few moments ago, and we needed storm windows on that too. And Chuck said he'd do it. And I said, well, whenever you get the chance, and it happened to be in the winter time. And I said, do it when weather permits and you have time. And so we had one morning, I think, when everything in town was shut down. Schools were closed. It was about 10 degrees below zero when the sun came up. There was about a 40-mile-an-hour steady wind. And I was stumbling around my living room, and the bay window of the living room looks directly across at the house. And I see Chuck coming around the side of the house. And he's got the storm window for the picture window on the front porch of the house in his hands. And any smaller man would have taken sail with that thing, but not Chuck. And he's got his Carhartts on, and he's got a ski mask on, and it's like, Chuck, when weather permits, this is your idea.
Weather permitted that day.
It did, and he did it, and I guess, knowing Chuck and knowing him in retrospect, it was probably one of those things where he thought, this is needed now more than ever.
Yeah.
Because old double hung window leaking air like a sieve.
Crazy.
So he got out there and did it. So that's storm protection number 3, if I'm counting correctly.
Yes, sir.
And I think about that, and I think about what you all are doing with this now. And Stoney's Kindness Fund, I think, is storm protection number 4. Because going back to the bookends, I knew Chuck in school. I knew he had a stormy upbringing, to say the least, and he's anybody who knew him knew that he was pretty casual about it, and he wasn't embarrassed or ashamed to admit it. He was very candid and carried that burden with a great deal of dignity, and that gave him a knowledge of the importance of trying to provide some storm protection for the kids that he taught later in his career. And I can't do anything without thinking of a song or song lyrics. And when I was reflecting on Chuck and storm protection, all I could think of was that when Chuck came to school, that was shelter from the storm for him. as Bob Dylan would say. And so when Chuck became the school as the teacher, he knew that for a lot of his kids that he needed to be shelter for the storm. So what y'all are doing with Stoney's Kindness Fund is just part of the same theme. Chuck knew the storm. I think of another song lyric when I think of him, and some of the things that he would do, because he was fearless. And one of my most recent experiences of him was when he decided on the spur of the moment that he was going to ride his motorcycle down to NC State for the anniversary celebration of the ACC championship team. And by the spur of the moment, I mean like the day before he left.
Oh, yeah.
And he hopped on his motorcycle and off he went. And I think right about the time he hit the Ohio River, he blew a rear tire. Mm-hmm. And most people would have said, darn my luck, I really wanted to be there. Somebody come get me, we'll get the bike fixed. Well, not Chuck. It was like, get this tire fixed, and I think I can still make the game. And if I recall correctly, he rolled in at 11 o'clock in the morning for a noon kickoff.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And there are pictures of him with other members of the team who spent the night in the Hilton.
Right. And he's chucked out.
Yeah, and they're all fresh as a daisy. And Chuck's looking like he rode all night, because he did. But I mean, that reminds me of another song lyric by a Scottish artist named Dougie MacLean, which is called, the song is Mary Barn, and it's a song about the last trip of a family fishing vessel in the North Sea off the coast of Scotland, because there simply aren't fish to be caught anymore. And they have a reference there, and they say, he is our captain, and he's not afraid to face the wind. And that was Chuck. And that was Chuck when we were up on the top of that scaffold.
Quite literally,
too.
yeah.
So I think of him facing down a storm. I think of him conquering storms. I think of him sheltering others from storms as much as he can. And about the last thing I'm going to be able to squeak out here is just to say, I know when my father passed, there was a poem I ran across called Shifting the Sun by an Armenian woman named Diana something. I won't pronounce her last name right, so I won't do it. But there is the opening line, I think, when your father dies, say the Irish, you lose your umbrella against bad weather. So my heart goes out to y'all in that respect, and I have great admiration for what you're doing to help your father's memory continue to be an umbrella for the benefit of people who need it.
Thank you.
And that's all I got.
Wow.
I think that's enough.
I need a second.
That's enough.
Rob, thank you.
I know, because I've been around you long enough, spent enough time with you, Rob, that you've always been such a great person to our family. You've been so kind to us, kind to me. And I know how much my dad loved and appreciated you and wanted me very badly, would constantly remind me, when you have a family, take care of them like Rob. In the practice of law, be more than your profession, be a father. And I know he looked at you with a lot of admiration, and we appreciate you so much. You have no idea. that agreed to, which we appreciate you. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
Well, and Chuck told me, he pulled me aside, and I just, the world is a poorer place without him, but we're all richer for having known him.
That's right.
And I take comfort in that. So, and he continues to show the way, which is why y'all are doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Rob, thank you so much.
It's my honor and my pleasure. It is.
I can't say anything more than that. Okay. Just a couple of quick updates. So as we enter the fall, we're going to move these updates to Monday evenings at 7 o'clock. I think it's going to be more convenient for not just our guests, but for us. So we're making that change. We're going to take next week off. Unfortunately, I have to be on the road for work Friday next week. So we're going to take next week off.
It's not the Bratwurst Festival. That's not the reason.
That is not my reason.
It just happened to fall in that same. How's that happen, Rob? What a coincidence.
Right. But we will return on Monday, August 22nd at 7 o'clock with another guest to share some stories. And then the fund update for tonight. As I mentioned earlier, our goal is to raise $25,000 before the end of August to make Stoney's Kindness Fund an endowment fund. An endowed fund will outlive all of us, and it's going to help generations of Bucyrus students that none of us will ever meet.
To weather the storm.
To weather the storm, that's right. So as I shared last week, the fund was at $9,000. And we continue to chip away and work towards that $25,000, and the fund is now at $9,500, according to the Community Foundation today at about 3 o'clock. So I want to say thank you to Rachel and Amy and Lisa for, helping us, not only start this fund, but, deal with me when I call every Friday at 3 o'clock to give me the updates. So. And again, donation information is going to be in the comments. So as we close tonight, I just want to say thank you. Adam, appreciate you being here. Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Very grateful, Rob.
Thank you. Very, very more. I don't know that grateful is enough, but thank you.
As I said, my honor and my pleasure, and it's tribute to you, your dad.
Thank you. Thank you. Donors, thank you. We appreciate you sharing our vision and seeing what we are trying to do. And those who joined us tonight, thank you. So again, we're going to take next week off, and we'll return Monday, August 22nd at 7 o'clock. Hope everybody has a good evening. Good night.